Good evening. I'm Dharmendra Gordon, and this is Vegan Synergy Meditation meeting number 19 of Vegan World 2026. Welcome. If everybody could just take a moment to sort of just stop whatever you've been doing today. First, just kind of notice your body and the different parts of your body, your feet and your ankles and your calves. And just go up through your body from your feet. And just sort of notice how your body is without necessarily doing anything other than just noticing that. And you can kind of take a moment and go through your upper legs and into your hips and into your stomach and lower back and your chest and your middle and upper back and your shoulders and your upper arms and your lower arms, your wrists and your hands and your fingers and your neck and your chin and your face and your nose and your ears and your eyes and your head. And then just kind of notice how your breathing is slowly opening up and relaxing and releasing a little bit as you become aware of the space of your physical body. And then just be aware of any kind of energy anywhere in your energy field, meaning emotion of any kind that might be connected to thoughts or visual pictures or sensations. And just be aware of whatever's there. There's thoughts, there's whatever's going on in your mind, and just be aware of that. And then as you turn into your mind, just acknowledge the last week, what you've been up against, what you've been challenged by, what's brought up your stuff, your conditioning, what's been pushing against your way of thinking things should be. And just acknowledge that and kind of just release that for now. You'll get back to it soon enough. And then just drop into your heart. Just absorb. Your heart can pretty much absorb anything and neutralize it. Just absorb whatever the impact of the last week is into your heart, and just take a moment to embrace yourself with whatever kind of acceptance of who you are, and just kind of with your energy and with your intent, just acknowledge and be the support for yourself for a moment in your heart, so that you can just kind of absorb and integrate everything that you've been working on in the last week. And then just drop a little deeper into your being, into your belly, and just kind of rest in your nature, in that place of your essence before any kind of sense of separateness or confusion or competition. Just a peaceful place in yourself where you can settle, where you can always settle, where you can be at home. And the theme of this week is the 8th life code of unique contribution. Every human being, just by being present on planet Earth, is making a contribution through the impact of their aura on the environment they find themselves in. The aura is an energetic configuration with a specific frequency that is attuned to a range of vibrations that impinge on the consciousness, resulting in certain types of thoughts, manners of speaking, and modes of action. Since no two auras are exactly the same, uniqueness is an innate quality of all auras or individual energy fields. The way our collective existence is set up, we all must contribute something through our individual efforts to the good of the society we live in, and are recompensed for such. This is how we earn our livelihood and also how we become an active member in our community. And the focus of this life code is on what we bring to the table while we are involved in doing all that. At the shadow level, our degree of participation through the uniqueness of our individuality is confined to the world of the mediocre. We are here functioning at the level of the herd consciousness, where everybody, within a very small range of variation, strives for the same kind of life goals that everyone else within their field of expertise is striving for. There is very little tolerance for self-expression that dares to step outside the commonly accepted and firmly established norms, and usually this is enforced by only funding projects that fit these rigid and fixated criteria. Anybody who advances the boundaries of endeavor in the specific field within which they are occupied will have a hard time progressing in that direction unless it is also supported by investors and/or leaders in that field or area of expertise. Hence, at the shadow level, one's unique contribution is part of that which maintains the status quo, for better or worse. It is not about supporting the individual. It is about maintaining collective structures that serve those at the top who wish to keep things the way they are at all costs. And for that, humans that behave like programmed and hence predictable robots are what those in power wish to promote. It takes a certain degree of objectivity and the ability to reflect upon one's perceptions, experiences, and manifestations on a regular and consistent basis for one to begin to realize that most of the life one is living is being subtly manipulated by various agencies through all kinds of channels for purposes that have almost nothing to do with one's health and well-being. And at the shadow level, where one is living a mediocre existence, there is practically no energy available to support the additional awareness needed to even begin to see the true state of one's affairs in this life. What does it take for one to wake up from a life lived on the surface, only capable of processing impressions at the level of the physical material world? Obviously, an event with enough of an impact to change the course of one's life from one of a conditioned automaton to one with a sense of purpose. That purpose being rooted in discovering the truth of one's situation, and that includes, as its central motivating principle, the path of self-realization in all its dimensions. One of the first things one encounters as one learns to disconnect from the mass consciousness frequency of distraction is the experience of being present in the now. Being present in the now creates a situation where all of one's sensory channels are functioning in a state of heightened awareness. So here, as the frequency of one's consciousness gradually elevates up through the spectrum of consciousness, as awareness grows, the capacity to express one's creative genius through whatever one is engaged in becomes ever more apparent, and this naturally emerges as one's style. That unmistakable imprint of one's signature that is imparted through one's energy field to everything one does. Each of us have an unrepeatable and totally unique style of genius in its creative process that is native to each and every one of us alone. It is the authentic expression of our identity arising out of our capacity to love ourselves, and how that love acts as a fuel to empower our sense of direction in the discovery of discovery of our innate capacities that seem to unfold naturally as we engage in our life's purpose, and the ensuing work needed to successfully resolve the challenges arising as a result. As we become more adept at remaining a witness to all that we think, say, and do throughout our daily activities, which occurs as a result of our deepening capacity to remain aware at all times, the conditioning we received at the hands of others in our upbringing slowly but surely begins to dissolve and disintegrate, leaving in its place our true nature and unconditioned essence. And as we learn to navigate our lives from the unique perspective of our essential nature, our individuality begins to impact the many collective groupings we are a part of in ever more positive ways and in ever widening circles of influence. Our unique contribution to the whole begins to reveal the exquisiteness of our spirit as we begin to find ways to express its beauty through the means of expression available to us in this world. We begin to sizzle with a certain kind of scintillating brilliance that infuses everything we are, everything we say, and everything we do. Every moment becomes an opportunity to make visible, that is, to manifest the spirit. One who embodies the exquisiteness of the spirit becomes a beacon of inspiration as a creative role model to all those that are capable of being receptive to the consciousness of such an individual. And the impact such a one has on one's energy field, and through that connection, penetrating into all dimensions of one's existence. We all have the capacity to awaken from the slumber of mediocrity, to discover the style of expression that our soul is seeking to convey. And if we can stay the course that this direction is leading us into with both love for ourselves and for the journey, the wisdom of the Spirit may yet become our guide in unraveling the mystery of the exquisiteness of our being. And with that, we begin. I think this is an especially apt life code at this time, especially because we all are finding ourselves on, hello, Evan. I didn't say hello to you yet. This is we find ourselves on these Zooms. And so we're each of us bringing our unique contribution every time we show up here, or at least in meetings like this, where everybody has a chance to participate. So it's really fascinating. I mean, I've participated in maybe, I don't know, half dozen different kinds of Zooms. And fortunately enough, the majority of them are about making a unique contribution of, you know, that allows you to express your own unique style, whatever it is that's the flavor of what you bring to the mix, which is nice, because I could imagine that there are a lot of Zooms out there that you know, are just basically, I mean, obviously the world we have set up with competition and all the things that our world is based on, our markets are thriving on, well, if you want to call it thriving anyway, the rich are thriving. But basically, there must be a lot of mediocrity in those meetings where most people are just sitting there listening to some guy who's the so-called boss, you know, and so not really much chance there to express your style. So for me, it's kind of like taking a look at, too, whenever I'm in any collective gathering, to just remember, you know, there's always an opportunity to give more to the situation than just my mediocrity. I mean, it's like being an automatic to do that. So it's always a challenge to when you're relating with somebody, how, you know, and you have to stay with the job and whatever the task is. But so that there's always that challenge of how to jump out of that mediocrity. And most of the time in a job where you're just getting paid, you know, because it's just a job, it's not necessarily, you know, depending on what you do, but it may not necessarily be the thing you want to do most in life. So you may tend to run on mediocre energy. So the challenge, it really is a challenge to find ways, even when you're in an ordinary circumstance, to make your work somehow allow your style to come through in your work. And so for me, that's my shadow, is that there are still, I've gotten a lot better, but there are still moments where I'll dip into kind of that sense of allowing what I'm doing for a moment to take over my identity and allow me to reflect on that, identifying me as the person I am in that moment that is experienced as very mediocre, would be a really simple and straightforward way to say it without getting lost in anything long-winded. I mean, it's good if you, I always feel like when I express my shadow, if I can say it in a sentence like that, then it's, because I like to spend a little more time with the gift and siddha because they're much more enjoyable and we can open up more. But if you can hit the note like that and just, you know, honestly admit how you fall into mediocrity and how it defines you and how you become identified, because the process of identification is really strong in this life code, because you forget your unique contribution and you become identified with the environment you're in and how it's limiting you in some way, and then you let it define you, and then you set your energy tone to that definition rather than standing in who you are and expressing whatever your true frequency is. So that's as much as I'll share right now to start this off. Not just my shadow, but also the shadow of the theme of mediocrity. So whoever would like to go next, please go.
I notice feelings of mediocrity come out when I am in group settings with friends. Um uh and and I feel this sense of kind of collective stagnation, or in the moment everyone is comfortable where we are, or at least they're comfortable enough to not want to leave, but uncomfortable enough to where I'm talking about it now. And yeah, almost there. I just get these feelings uh, of of wondering if there's something more I should be doing or could be doing. But then also there's a lot of comfort. There's a lot of comfort there too.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. That reminds me of my younger years, where I also would get into a lot of group situations like that, and then always in my mind just searching for, well, is anybody going to do something different or say something unusual, or is anything going to go anywhere, or are we just going to kind of hang and be in this stereotypical culture that we've created of us, all of us just being kind of ordinary Joes hanging out kind of thing. So I thought you did, that definitely put me in touch with how that used to be for me in my younger years. Cool.
I can share, Darb. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So for me, I work in corporate. I've been working in corporate for, gosh, almost 30 years. And that's not what I always wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher, and I did have the opportunity to be a college professor for a number of years. But I went with corporate work. And there's so many times, oh my goodness, so many times in corporate where dressing a certain way, you have to dress a certain way if you're going to meet a client. You have to worry about your hair, your nails, what you're wearing, and and if the makeup is right. And it's funny for me because I fell into that situation that I grew up with. It was the same conditioning from my parents. You have to look a certain way and be a certain way. And then I fell right into that in corporate. So I think the identifying with that for so many years is a real struggle with who I actually am and who I know I am, but that took many years. And I still get caught up in, certainly around performance evaluation time, about bonuses or merit increase or things like that, where I would get it, but I wouldn't think it's enough. So just because it's not enough does not mean that I'm not enough. And that's the struggle that I have with not identifying so much with what the corporate way is and who Danya is. Very, very different structures, and to juggle so many hats like that, with being a mom, with being a best friend, a companion, corporate. I think it's just really important to understand who you are in all of this, to embrace it. It's still a struggle. That's where I'm at.
Well, that was well differentiated, and I know that pretty much the corporate world really thrives on mediocrity of its employees. I'd like to welcome Brittany. Hi. You're new, so just watch how it goes. We're kind of moving through the shadow space. I mean, if you want to take a moment and introduce yourself, that's cool. But we're going through shadow space, then we're going to go through gift space, and then we're going to go through what we call siddha space, which has to do with our higher selves. So this is a 3-stage process we do. But if you'd like to let us know who you are, since you're new to the meeting. And I'm Dharmendra, I'm the host.
Hi, thank you for hosting. I'm a friend of Lucy's, and I met her when I was out there traveling and visiting some friends in Australia about a year ago now. It's crazy how time flies. But yeah, we've been talking about Gene Keys for a while. I actually discovered it just after I left from visiting Australia, right after I'd made it back to the States. I'm in San Diego here, California, and went through a good bit of it, but I know there's a lot of layers and levels to it. So I've definitely been like feeling the urge to dig back into it and go a little deeper with all of the concepts. So I was really stoked to hear that this was something that you guys were facilitating. So thanks for having me.
Very cool. Well, welcome. I grew up in San Diego. I'm
Oh.
from basically from there. So yeah, and what I've done is I've taken the Gene Keys and made one more step, and I call it the life codes. So I'm adding in a lot more depth when it comes to, based on my understanding of the Gene Keys and human design, which I've been into for a long time. Just suffice it to say, and I'm aware of it enough, and the people who have created it, to say that I like to go a little deeper into these kind of interactive exchanges where we can all support each other to use the Gene Keys as life codes to literally teach and train ourselves how to accelerate and decelerate our consciousness. So we start to become the master of our awareness and our presence and things. So it's kind of more actively engaging it, as opposed to trying to find, I mean, there's lots of different ways out, like especially through the Gene Keys, where people are trying to find avenues and how to say it, different forms of livelihood to express the Gene Keys through. My emphasis is find out who you are through the Gene Keys first. You can use it like that. That's why I call it more life codes. Is what codes are in you, and how does your life want to express them, you know? And so, and we use this as kind of an open-eyed, interactive, conversational, meditative space we create by first starting like you do but it's very condensed, like taking years of meditation and condensing it into this kind of a meeting. And it works this way because we're a collective, and we know how to go through the shadow. We can each do it, and we can see so many aspects of the shadow that we normally wouldn't see it except on our own, maybe over years of meditation, to really get in touch with that shadow and dissolve it all, you know, because when you become aware, whatever's negative dissolves, whatever's true is strengthened. That's the magic of awareness, or what I like to call witnessing consciousness. So that's just to give you a quick introduction into what we're doing. And so a few of us have already shared their shadows. We had a theme of the 8th Life Code, which basically goes mediocrity, style, and exquisiteness, and it's all about you expressing your unique contribution. As it becomes more and more creative and more expressive and more conscious, you become a creative role model, basically. But in the beginning, as Danya was sharing just a moment ago, in corporate America, everybody's treated like part of a herd, and you're all the same, and so it's very mediocre. There's not much of a contribution that's very unique. It's almost the absence of uniqueness that's what's supported in the corporate. So now you're all caught up. And so I'm going to go on silent and let whoever wishes to jump into the shadow space next go ahead.
I think kind of along the same lines as what corporate America is. My school, I go to a charter school, a preparatory academy. So there's uniforms, there's strict rules. And so I sense a lot of suppression of unique contribution. Basically, like every corner I turn, you know, like in the dress code handbook, it says you can't have your nails painted a certain way, you have to have light makeup, you know, the same thing that my mom goes through. And you know, I love to question the rules, and so I ask them why, and they say that it's because we don't want it to be distracting. And I think that's the problem. People want conformity, people want assimilation, because I mean, to be frank, it's easier to control everybody if they're all the same. And you don't have to keep adjusting your rules, you don't have to get creative. And so I think the thing that's so scary for people in power about unique contribution is that it allows people to feel more free. It allows people to feel confident about who they are without questioning, is this right? When really there's no right or wrong. You know, red nail polish or clear nail polish, there's no right or wrong. And I think that's what's so amazing about unique contribution, and that's what so many people hate about it. It's so scary to them because it's so new and there are so many possibilities, when really that's what's so wonderful about it. You're still on mute.
I said, wow, that's, yeah, I thought I hit the button, but I didn't. I said, wow, that's pretty wise for 15 years old. Whatever you just said speaks for itself. I won't say any, I'll just let that ride. I think that was really well said.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. So,
I'll share a little bit. It's hard to go after Adriana sometimes, but yeah, something that I've been dealing with the last couple of weeks, internally and also in the external world in general. But internally, I've been working on shock points within my life that have created traumas that have kind of resonated throughout my life. And they've been lots of little kind of black spots of shocks, but also some quite big, heavy blocks of shock of certain experiences that I've had that have ended up creating a whole heap of trauma that I've been doing my best to deal with. But now I'm actually getting to the point of releasing those shocks. And a lot of them are associated with how women have been treated, how women are generally, I guess, as you know, you've all been saying as well, it's conformity in general, but at the same time, the way that I feel women have been suppressed a lot throughout history, and going forward into a different kind of future. My experiences of having been suppressed or oppressed or just mistreated by both men and women, and seeing the fear that is within a lot of people because of the system of oppression that's been created. It's been made okay to treat each other in a certain way that's just, it's not okay, and it's not going to be okay going forward. But working on those points of physical assault, mental assault, emotional manipulation, all the stuff that is kind of accumulated throughout life, and obviously is probably going to be still something that we have to deal with going forward as well. But I'm seeing how I have constantly been belittling myself and constantly been putting myself into that mediocre role and accepting that I'm either too much or I'm not enough. And it's hard to find that balance in the middle, or actually being able to really express myself and really speak my truth and really stand in my power and channel my higher self, like all that stuff. Finding my way to do that and letting go of those shock points and letting go of all the the times that people have said things about me or thought things about me or placed blame on me or projected onto me, and just releasing all of that. That's a process that I'm going through at the moment, and there's a lot of those ties, but it's interesting seeing it dissolve and seeing it unravel, and the triggers that it can kind of create, I guess, in people as well. So yeah, working on my non-acceptance of my own mediocrity at the moment.
Wow, sounds like some deep work going on there. And that's another thing too. It's like these shadows are not something but we all do it. But the thing is they're there to teach us something, because at the time we created the shadows as a child, when we thought if we didn't, we wouldn't survive. So we created a reaction pattern that froze inside us that we had to do. And then every time a similar situation comes up, we just automatically do it. It takes a lot of work on yourself and a lot of paying attention to how you behave in all kinds of situations before you can get to a point where you can catch that before it catches you. It takes a lot of work to do that. And but one of the things about like mediocrity, I mean, it's like that's what everybody's trying to get us to do when we're growing up. It's like fit into your family, fit into your school, fit into your job, fit into society, fit into and it's like we're just a cookie cutter of every, so we have 5 or 6 different versions of ourselves, and they're all cookie cutter versions of whatever thing I just named: family or society or school or whatever it is, your job or your social circle. And that's it. And that's all you get. That's all you get to do. You can't think outside of that. You get a few thoughts and a few ways to feel and a few things you get to do in each one of those, and that's it. But so the first thing to do is the energy I just put out. You don't want to bring that energy when you start to look at that in yourself, because that's what the energy is. It's like that. It's yucky. Let's face it, because you've been treated like you're yucky, and you have to be controlled and put into this little slot. But what the vast majority of people don't realize, and as Adriana was saying, it's easier to control people. So yeah, no kidding. No wonder it works so well. And all you have to do is keep creating repetitive signals over and over again through the mass media and everything else, and school and social scenarios, and very little is accepted outside of that. And then it's so easy to make you mediocre and everybody else mediocre. And mediocre just means you follow the status quo and you behave and you do like you're supposed to do. And you'll know what you're not supposed to do, because as a kid, the minute you step excuse me, the minute you step outside of that role, you're going to get whacked one way or another, energetically, mentally, physically, whatever, depending on family you grew up in. So the first thing we have to do, is we have to learn how to embrace our shadows. I mean, that's really the thing. And to see how hard we are on ourselves about our shadows, which is just really us identifying with the place that suppression was coming from. We start to identify with the role model of the person who shoved that stuff down our throat in the first place. So we stand in their shoes and we yell at ourselves about our shadows, about the very shadows they were yelling us to create in the first place. So it's a real catch-22. So it's really, you really have to stop and learn to love ourselves, especially starting with the shadows. That, okay, so this is the shadow I got. I guess I'm going to just stand back. In a psychic sense, I'm going to stand back and start to give space to watch this and see how it comes out of me. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be weird. I'm going to be constantly wondering why I'm doing these things. But that's all that's needed. And the more you become aware of it, it just dissolves, and what comes back in its place we'll get to in the next step when we share our gift. But I just want to keep it at the shadow right now. So I'll just say that much. And so let's see, anybody who hasn't shared yet before I start making invitations. Is there anybody? Beautiful.
Yeah, just going off of the tangent of like really just thinking about how much it's ingrained. It's really like a conditioning thing that is, the society has adopted, and it happens at a very young age, like you said, growing up with that sense of fear that's really instilled within everyone, that that you are to fit in, you are to blend in with everybody, you are to go along with what everybody else is doing. And I was just talking to my partner about this last night or the night before, and I was like, gosh, like how many times you know, have you been in like a group, you know, scenario, either at school or some kind of meeting or seminar or something, and you know, they ask a question, and you know, if you've ever had this happen, or if you feel this way, raise your hand. And it's like, what do we do? First thing, we look around and see who else is raising their hand first. You don't want to be the first person to raise your hand, or you don't want to be the only one that raised your hand. Or if you're not raising your hand and everyone else is, then you're looking around going, uh-oh, you know, because there's two reasons. One is, you know, you don't want to be the odd man out. You don't want to feel like you don't fit in, because that's been programmed into our minds from a very young age that if you don't fit in, then there's something wrong with you. So if you're doing something different than what everybody else is doing, it's that feeling of uncomfortableness that's basically been programmed in that rises up, and then, you know, the fear comes into place. And the second reason is that you don't want to be zeroed in on. You don't want to be targeted. You're going, oh gosh, you know, is someone going to call me out? Is someone going to start asking me questions and challenge me on like why I feel the way I feel or whatever? So yeah, it's quite fascinating to see how that bleeds into various aspects of our experience, you know, just in all realms, and how we avoid being in situations where we're different or doing something that's not like what everyone else is doing, even if it innately feels better to do something different. It's the fear of it. It just completely takes it over, and we just go along with what everyone else is doing just to be accepted and not have to go through some kind of chastising or awkward experience.
Wow, sounds like you've been watching that part of yourself a bit. You seem to have, I mean, I get that a lot of that must be coming from direct observation, because you seem to know it really well. And that's good. I mean, that's a good thing. It's good to have, to be able to draw from your experience and realize, but also to see, you're also, I got the feeling you really are seeing a lot of the mechanisms of it, which is really good, because then it can start to dissolve the more aware you become of those automatic ways we're put into different, you know, slots, and then expected to be a certain way. And if you slip out of that slot, then all kinds of contingencies can start to impinge upon your reality. And it's like, oh my God. But so thank you.
I'll try and keep it short and sweet. I think I like to think I try and step out of the mediocre sense a lot, and I just feel like, in a sense, Murphy's Law loves me, and anything that can go wrong goes wrong. But I still try, and I suppose my shadow is just try to keep up the battle. It's exhausting, like, you know, try to hit different angles, left, right, and center, and financially and physically. And that's not even talk about Corona or anything like that, but that's the shadow. Is just like I constantly feel like I'm turning in circles, trying to battle the rubble that's in front of me, and that would be my shadow.
Well, that was short and sweet, and it's nice if you can nail it like that, and you know yourself that well. That's cool. But in this meeting, there's never a time limit. This is different than the other meetings. I definitely don't want to be like any other meeting. That's for sure. So, and I don't even do my meetings like any other meeting. So, anyway, see, that's just me playing with, I'm not mediocre. I'm not mediocre. I'm really cool. No, just kidding. But anyway, my attempt at pretty bad humor. But anyway, thank you, Stephanie. And all, Amira, before we go on, since everybody else is done, I know you may just be listening, but if you wanted to share anything shadow-wise, please do. I'll give you a moment. If not, we'll go to the gift.
No, I'm going to listen. I don't, because if I talk, I'm just going to cry the whole time. So, just saw the news piece of my daughter's fiance who just passed away from coronavirus on the news 20 minutes before this meeting. And, I just got really lightheaded saying that. So that's all. I don't.
Okay, and just take a moment and let that, everybody absorb that. That's kind of the essence of the, what I would call the shadow of the collective right now, which is the coronavirus. That's what the collective is doing through all of us right now. It's heart rendering, that's for sure. Okay, so now we're going to step into the gift space. In the gift space, there's something I discovered years ago that I call the heart of transformation. It's an actual technique that was created by a Buddhist master hundreds of years ago, where basically you take in the suffering of another and you breathe back out to them. Either it can either be love or compassion or anything you want that's truly beneficial and uplifting and of of beneficence to the other person, and at the same time you totally take in whatever their suffering is. And but taking that in this scenario and applying it to ourselves. So for me, that shadow of mediocrity, which I face more than anything else in my professional life. But it's also, if I extend it out, it's also there at times with the neighbors and stuff when you don't really want to stop and have a long conversation, so you just do a little mediocre hello, goodbye, and how are you, nice weather, and whatever. But all of that, what it does is it really keeps us almost suffocated in the sense of really feeling what the life force could do through us if we really started to open ourselves a little bit more to the possibilities of that wisdom coming through us. Because there are those times then, especially at work, when somebody comes in and asks me a simple question, and next thing you know, we've gone through a whole hour of an incredible conversation. And usually 9 times out of 10, because I'm a pretty strange character in most circles, especially at the work I work at, usually ends up me telling a bit of my story of my life, which tends for most people to be very how should I say, quirky and idiosyncratic and sort of like unique and different. Doesn't fit into what most people consider, especially in Mesa, Arizona, what most people consider the kind of life they're used to or do. So that style can actually come through sometimes. And what I have found is the best way it comes through is not when you have this plan to have it like, oh, I'm just gonna be myself today. I'm really not gonna get lost in my shadow and my mediocrity, and I'm really gonna come out with who I am. That usually doesn't work, and that's usually when you do something like that, it's set up by your shadow in the first place, because it's your shadow that needs that recognition, or it needs that extra boost, or it needs that motivation. The beauty of the gift is it comes from when you're in a centered space and you're kind of in touch with your essence and who you are. And then when I step into that space, because I had one of those conversations today where a lady who, funny enough, I work in a center for people with developmental disabilities, and I work in the administrative department of that, doing computer work and other things. As an IT tech guy. But before I got elevated into admin, I was just a guy who worked with people with developmental disabilities in groups. I would work with them and lead them through different projects and stuff. It's a very interesting thing based on my history. I came from a construction and other things background, and all that went away when the economic crash happened in 2008. Anyway, so this lady who I had a conversation with today years ago, her and I were like 2 different, what they call providers in a room working with people with developmental disabilities, like about 6-7 years ago. And I started teaching Tai Chi to people with developmental disabilities. And that's how her and I connected, because she was one of the few people who worked in that place who actually started doing the Tai Chi with me, along with the people with developmental disabilities. Well, she came into my office today, and she just asked me something. I think it was about one of her kids and how he was going to get used to doing Zoom things, because he was really getting bored in the house and needed to have a lot of interaction with other people. And it just turned into this huge conversation about what I'm doing in meetings like this. And I started to share about all the crazy things that I do in meetings like this, and sharing with people how we have an essence that's different than this conditioned shut down personality of ours. And that essence of ours, when we start to open it up, it's always new, it's always fresh, you never know where it's going to go or where it's going to take you. And it's always intelligent, it's always sensitive to everybody in the space. My genius right now, I can feel everybody's heart. And so I know where everybody's at, in terms of energy, because I've gone out of my little trip of my shadow and now I'm in my gift. And when you're in your gift, you're immediately connected to everybody's heart. And everybody, I think, just about everybody in the space, when you're in a space with people and you're cooking, and I think of Evan with his friends, when they're not bored and they're actually having a really good conversation or doing something that's really firing everybody up, but in a heartfelt way, like you're reminiscing or being nostalgic and everybody's really enjoying it. Nobody's in a bad mood or something. And then the heart opens up and it starts quivering and shaking and sharing and doing what it does when it starts to find that you're in a space you love. You lose your self-consciousness, you lose your concern for whether you fit in or you don't fit in, and you just step into your style. And you can't help but be yourself because you set it up that way. You just went, okay. But obviously it's not something you can contrive. That's one of the qualities of it. You can't contrive your style. You're either in your style, you're either relaxed, you're who you are, or you're not. And the fact is we're always on stage. So I guess the sooner we get used to the fact that we're always on stage wherever we are with anybody, and there's always a chance to step into your style and not perform, but come from who you are. Because performance to me means you're being run by a very subtle shadow mechanism there. That's you're being treated like like somebody who's been trained to do something, and you got a script and you got to follow it and the whole thing. So when all that drops away and then you come out and you go, hi, here I am. Oh, wow, this is really cool. And it's exposing me. And what I guess if you were really, it would almost be like breaking through that resistance to being embarrassed for being caught out at being really cool. Because in the world, we're so put down. We're all supposed to be dumbed down, just kind of agreeable little schmucks, and the minute we start getting a little animated and start, making funny faces or saying funny things or tickling somebody or appreciating somebody or saying, that was really lovely and to strangers even, but because you're coming from your heart, it goes past the surface. It doesn't matter if I know you or not. We all have the same kind of heart. We start beating in that same, and we both have a style and we get into a rhythm. And once we get into that rhythm in our hearts and our hearts start beating in the same pace, then it's like then everybody's style comes out. It's like, oh, that person's got wow, that's trippy over there. Oh, wow, that one's, and this one is, very, each one is different, sincere, whatever. Some are explosive, but the quality is that it's freaky in a good way. It's freaky in a good way, and that's what genius is. It's freaky in a good way, and it's good for everybody else. See, so it's not so much what I'm saying, but this is what I try to convey when we get to the gift. Feel the energy and the space now. We just came out of the shadow, which is like, what that does. But you see, the gift is a very different energy. You just got to kind of jump in. And it's not like there's a right way to do it. We're going to lose more and more the definition of what I read in the beginning about the life code. And we're just going to, it's about getting deeper into it. So we're kind of like shifting from that mentally conditioned, shut down, physically diseased, emotionally negative place. And we're opening into what does our soul feel good about? What do we love? And just get into that space, and then you could just express yourself, So it's not so much about defining style. You can do that a lot with the shadow. You can kind of define it because it's easy to. But once you get into style, there's a lot of places where it kind of escapes definitions, like popcorn. You can't really catch it. It's too quick. Bam, 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 bam. And then, or even see it. You ever tried to watch popcorn popping? Anyway. So it's just that. It's just shifting the energy. I mean, that's really what's important in this, because I'm really watching and listening to myself what I'm saying. And there are some of these life codes really you can kind of be kind of like scientific about it and really get into details. But this one, it isn't, because it's an individual. It's an expression of individuality, which is a mutative thing. And mutative things are like popcorn. They don't follow a strict order. They go all over the place. So that's all, just to shift the energy now. So welcome. This is the energy of the gift space. Whoever wants to jump into that. And it's my style right now in the moment. But remember what I said too. Take the shadow, come from the shadow and put it in your heart and let the shadow dissolve in your heart, absorb it, embrace it in your heart. That's how the gift will open.
So I wanted to say, Darv, that thank you so much for lifting and shifting. I always love when you do that. I get a really fun little zing. So going into the gift and dissolving the shadow and absolving the shadow, it's really fantastic when, and not just in a work environment, but when I'm going on a walk and I connect with somebody just through a smile across the street, you know, or at work when I'm having a one-on-one call with one of my mentees or something else, and all, you know, you just get to a point in the conversation where you feel the slightest amount of shift and you're like, oh, I see you. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate that, you know, and I appreciate who you are. It's almost like in that instant, everything drops, everything, the inhibitions, everything drops. And then you just become, your essence. And it's really fantastic when even through like Zoom, or when I'm Skyping somebody at work, or like I said, when I'm out on a walk, all of a sudden you can almost see how the essence of whoever you're with integrates with you and incorporates in with you. And it's so different. The energy is so different. It's so much more pure when the inhibitions go away, and everybody just drops their masks or their shadows for just that instant. And it's just a great ride. It's really, really genuine, and it's pure, and it's true, you know, to what you had said. It's just a beautiful connection. And if we continue to connect like that more often, wow, what a ride. What a ride.
Thank you, Danya. That was really, really keeping the energy flowing. So that was nice. I just want to acknowledge that's what it's about.
I'll go. I really resonated with what you said before, Domendra, about performance and every moment being the stage. I've felt this sense of the world being our stage for a long time. And I've identified myself as a performer for a long time. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that that performance is so much sort of kind of structured around, well, there's a big element of ego in that, the sort of the essence of performance, as opposed to just channeling your higher self, or being in flow, just the flow of life, wu wei, you know, effortless action, just letting things come through. And actually just this morning I had to write up a little description of what I do, and I was going to use the word performer and I decided not to. So, and I don't know why exactly, but it was just an interesting thing that I'm kind of still happy to embody, but kind of maybe moving away from, just because things are a bit more flow, and I see the future as being a bit more, or a lot more natural and less scripted. But it's still an element of myself that I appreciate, sort of the ability to express in lots of different ways. And I feel drawn to help other people be able to express themselves through art, through all sorts of different kinds of art, and whatever kind of energy needs to come out, it's got to come out some way. So I feel like that's a big part of my calling, and the way I see our activism in future as well is through expressing the messages through creative means, and through being just by being ourselves and allowing our aura, that the energy that we put out, that as being sort of the MO, or like the vehicle to kind of drive that message, just by being authentic, as opposed to performing so much. Maybe we have to be on point, we have to be high vibes, high energy to be able to do that. But at the same time, if we're really living in our gift or our genius, this is maybe my understanding of it, is that's just natural, that naturally should just kind of come out. It's obviously a process, and it's obviously, there's a lot of work involved in that. And I'm finding at the moment, I'm excited for those experiences of just being in my heart space and really being able to really sit in that and be in my heart and just feel this peace and this genuine calm of really connecting with a different kind of love. And I think there's so many different kinds of different things that we kind of place on that word, and love can mean so many different things for so many different people. But I'm finding more of a universal God kind of love experience in my heart at the moment, and it's amazing, and I'm so grateful to be able to experience that. So I'm very excited for more and more people to be able to experience that calm and just joy. And I hope that our future of freedom is going to help facilitate that for the whole world.
Wow, that was a nice ride. Thanks. And also something passed through my mind while you were doing that is when I first started doing this, and that was, way long time ago. I used to call the first part dropping the stone, and the second part, what we're doing now, I called opening the vision. And I really got a sense through you, Lucy, and the way you were expressing what you were expressing, that you were kind of stepping into that opening, envisioning yourself in that place on the stage, and then kind of just ad-libbing and going from there, because this 8th Life Code is really about that. It's almost like you just get on the stage, and we have a show in America here. It's called Whose Line Is It? And it's all these comedians who come on and just, maybe you guys know it, but they all come on and they just go, that non-rehearsed. And it's really, this is that life code. This is what that life code is. Okay, here it is. What can you pull out? What kind of a rabbit can you pull out of your hat without even rehearsing? But the essence of it is what I was saying about after you drop the stone, which is the shadow, then it's like you open the vision. And as you open the vision, you step into it, and you become your event horizon. What is the horizon that you want to create it, be the event of? And so those are just old terms, but they seemed relevant in what you were saying. It really kind of clicked. So I thought I'd mention that. And now I'm done.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing that stuck out the most in what Lucy said was this just feeling of joy. And I think the way that I get that feeling of joy from unique contribution is not being an actor at all, not being a performer, is just sitting in the audience. And so I was on a different call the other day, and it was with people that I'd never met before. And when we all logged in and I saw all of their faces, and they were all just full of all of these different expressions and all of these different thoughts and energies and all of these different things that they had planned to say and these things that they were excited to talk about. That was where I got that joy, to see all of these different people and just to see all of that diversity and all of their different ways of thinking and how wonderfully different they all were from each other. And then as I heard them talking, I was able to just step back and notice, and I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say. I wasn't thinking about how I looked in the little, corner thing where you can see yourself. I wasn't thinking about me. I was thinking about everybody else, and it just filled me with so much joy just to see how many different perspectives there can be in the world that aren't mine. That was just, it was so wonderful.
Neato.
Well, I've really connected with and enjoyed everything that we've all been saying tonight. I especially enjoy this gift place because I feel like for a long time it was this space of kind of like spontaneous creation and flow that I was wanting to be in school with people, and I didn't quite know how to put it into words, but I knew that I was always dissatisfied when I knew what I was going to say. Like there was something about knowing what I was going to say and then being like, all right, wait your turn, and then say it, that was just really dissatisfying. And I didn't know why, and I wasn't sure. And, but yeah, after a while, things started to click together. Like I would realize after like a musical production performance, and everyone is down in the audience now, and people are sweaty and smiling. Just I would see everybody in a totally different light, with like this open heart after this exhausting performance, and that's yeah, I don't know, that's just like so refreshing and appealing to realize that when you're interacting with people, you are also, you're getting to know yourself in the process as well, and that I don't need to keep checking the little corner up in the screen, because if I already knew who I was or what I was going to be or present myself as, it just wouldn't be wouldn't be genuine, and it wouldn't be as lovely, I guess. I don't know. And it certainly wouldn't feel as good, especially in this shared heart space. We would lack the connection. And anyway, yes, that's all.
Spontaneity. That's what I got out of what you just totally about spontaneity. That's another key element in this life code. And spontaneity is a really cool one because it's a doorway into the new. That's what spontaneity is, and that's what really we're all looking for a lot of the time. Is just we miss the new, we miss that fresh, juicy opening into something unexpected or unexplored or unknown. That brings a lot of zest into life, and I think it's the very essence of life is spontaneity.
I guess I'll share. Man, just like so many amazing things that everybody's saying. I really liked the concept about like even just the beingness in the midst of like conversation, where everyone clicks into like a new dynamic together. And I really felt that as like this easing of tension, where there's no expectation or no feeling of needing to be any certain way. It's just kind of being in your essence and feeling comfortable with that. And also, like, I don't know, it's bringing to mind for me the concept of, like, recently someone was talking about this idea that, like, if you're sitting in front of a mirror and the mirror is your reality, your experience, that you have to be, like, if you want to see a smile in the reflection, you have to do it. You have to do it first. You have to be that energy, and create that for yourself, because it's not going to just manifest for you without you actually creating that space for yourself to be in, you know, actually resonating on that frequency, like that heart-spaced frequency, if that's what you want to see, like, reflected back to you in your reality. You know, it's important to really step into that space and be it, feel it, and like Lucy was saying, you know, envisioning, you know, creating a vision of something that you want to embody. And, you know, I also think that makes a big difference in, you know, you could go and be performing or offering something, and your space that you're in around it, how you're feeling about the fact that you're sharing those aspects of yourself, is going to make a huge impact on how it's going to be reflected back to you. Like, if it's well received, or it just seems like, you know, no one even really noticed, like, it's not really that much different what you're actually doing, but it's the energetic frequency that you're emitting from your heart, from your soul, in that process. So yeah, that's just what came to mind for me.
I'm ready to say something. Excuse me. That was beautiful. I want to write on that. I was saying to Dharmendra the other night, you know, I'm just going to sum it up. People are, you know, on a spiritual path, are looking for that so-called enlightenment, whatever that means to you. It just really means fully aware and aware of yourself. And that's a wonderful thing. That's what we need more than ever. But anyways, I told him that if people can see their picture in their mind, if they can see what they would like to see the world as, and I know we all have that vision. I know we all have done it many times and even upgraded or made a change or whatever. But we've all been there. So if we're able to do that, we are that. You can't make that shit up. Whatever that real experience in your heart is for you, that you, even in your mind, your psyche, whatever, you are that. The only thing you have to do is get into that. And that's all. That's it. Choose it or don't. I'm known as a hard ass. And I mean to be, because this world needs a damn good ass kicking right now. And I only come from my heart, because if I didn't kick ass, I wouldn't have a heart. And it ain't pretty, but it can be. You know, there's only one mistake I see in the whole existence of humanity. And that is, they have lost their way with nature. They have no real natural connection whatsoever to the natural part of life in all that entails. Animals do, and that's why I love animals so much. I respect them so much. They live moment by moment, nothing planned, in nature, fully, going with the flow, one's gazillion%, whatever the highest number is. They just do it and they don't question it. They don't go, oh, hey man, I'm not digging this. You know, they just do what they got to do. Humans have no clue on that level. And that's a problem in the world. That's why the earth is in crisis. That's why the energy, the life force is having to come in now. You know, my heart's beating on that one. The minute I said life force, my heart is beating, because I know tick-tock on this planet. And I'm not a doomsdayer. I want to save some asses. That's what I do. That's why I'm an animal rights activist. That's why I go out and protest. That's why I do that kind of weird ass, which puts you in jeopardy. But you're willing to fight. I'll die for animals. I would die for animals. There's no doubt. I would die to voice for them. So my point is, that's what I am. What are you? I mean, it's like, we are what we see. I'm a hardcore mouthy activist sometimes. And that's so good. I'm so 100%, oh my God, so beyond 100%. I can't even say that. That's degrading it, lowering the standard. So my point is, I can accept that. And we're talking about how we're supposed to look in society, right? That was the whole gist of the evening. What we're trying to live up to. I don't try to live up to anything. I just am who I am. I don't give a shit. I'm not out to hurt anybody. My heart has never hurt anyone, ever. If it comes off that way, well, maybe you need a little kick in the pants. No big deal. But we all do, and I still get it. Anyways, I didn't speak earlier. That's my shadow, my gift, and my siddha. Peace out.
And that's my beloved Amira, who I've known for 47 years, and she's always a kick, no matter what. To me, she's the living example of style and what I was calling earlier the freakiness, but in a really good way, because there's heart there, but there's such a depth to it, and there's a real solidness to it too, and it's I've never had anybody who had my back more than this lady. So, and the love of the animals. But that's also, again, that's another, you see what it means, style, the energy can also have some verve in it, it can have a kick to it too. And also in human design, she has the channel, the 1858, which is the shit disturber. So that's going to come out in the gift anyway. So the gifts are different. I mean, there's tons of different gifts that we have. So we have to be aware that even the gift is, the frequency can also have, and we'll see it more as we move into the Siddhic, can also start to differentiate out into all kinds of other things. Like, it's even really cool when we're at the Siddha space, which we're going to get to in a minute, as soon as the last person shares their gift. But even from the Siddha space, to start to look at the shadow is really interesting, because it becomes hilarious when you start to see your shadow from your higher self. Because, you've heard the term angels can fly because they take themselves lightly, right? That's what we're doing when we go into the higher self. You can't take anything seriously, not even your shadow, because it's just, you really start to see what's going on there and behind all that. I mean, there's great humor when somebody comes in and disturbs shit. If you can not take it personally, and you can disidentify with the patterns that are being pointed out, it's one of the quickest ways to drop and dissolve, is to be open to somebody who really can look straight into you and say, bing bang boom, that's it. And if you open to that, it clears things so quickly. There's a magic to that. So that's what I have to say on that. And I believe, let's see, bing bang boom. Not to single you, yes, I was going to say, not to single you out, Stephanie, but
so like what everyone's saying so far, to be honest, I'm struggling with the gift part, but I suppose one good gift, is I have faith, and it's not necessarily religious or scientific or anything like that, but I have faith in everything happening for a reason. And I would call everything everything that happens for a reason is a need. It needs to happen. So when I get lost in my emotions and stuff, and I just try and sit with it and think, become aware and sit with it and think, okay, this isn't a want and urge in me, but what needs to happen is happening around me. So just welcome what is happening, because the outcome is going to happen anyway. And one example of everything happens for a reason, like the fact that I'm sitting here with, having this kind of conversation for me is it's kind of like and I know I'm new, but it's kind of like making that that agreement with yourself at a certain time to sit with yourself and go through these stages, which is in itself just being yourself, a caretaker of yourself. And that's one thing I struggle with, is codependency, and I suppose taking turns of being my own caretaker, which is taking care of everybody else essentially. So yeah, so sitting with myself, being aware of my thoughts and supporting myself, which in turn is for everybody else, is, I think, my gift, if I'm nailing that correctly.
I have to comment. That was so beautifully put, and that is your gift. That's all I can say to that. Bravo. I mean, that was incredible. That's your gift. That is your gift. Trust that. Please do.
And also, Stephanie, you just kind of defined what a gift is too, what the space of gift is, the way you just put that in everybody's heart through your heart. I mean, that's really what a gift is. I mean, that's it. That's the essence of giftness. That's what creates the space so we can all be in a gift space together. So if that's what you do, and I believe it's true because I've listened to you in other meetings, and I'm just captivated by your, you're really wise, but you're not just wise, you're eloquent, and you're perceptive, and you can differentiate things, and you're really on top of the issues in the world, and you also have a deep reflection, and it makes you want to makes you look at yourself when you're looking at yourself and sharing yourself. And I think that's what you're trying to say, if I'm not mistaken. It makes me look at myself the way you share how you look at yourself. And that's definitely a gift as far as I can see.
And I'd like to add to that too, is that I don't know if you remember, I was on one of Jamin Shively's meetings with your dad. Your dad was rocking it one day, and I kept coming in and going, "Oh my God, James, you're doing awesome." You know, I mean, he was really hitting some points, and I was really digging it. And you were there too. And so you had it then. Okay, never mind.
Oh, you just got her excited there, Amir, and then you stopped. Jeez. That's why she's just like, yeah, right, okay.
Well, I don't want to take over, but I will finish since you said, but no, I noticed you back then. You are so articulate and eloquent. And I mean, your energy is really, and you're a badass. All blend in. Yeah. So.
Wow. So it's a really, I'm really digging tonight. I really feel honored to everybody who's here tonight, because I feel like we're ripping it. So that's cool. It doesn't, I mean, I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true, because I've actually never said that in a meeting before. So I guess that's what's happening. But I think it has a lot to do with this life code, which brings out your uniqueness. So you have to, so now we're going to step into the sitter space, because I believe everybody's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe everybody's shared in this phase, the gift space, right? Right. Okay. So now we're going to open up into what the exquisiteness of being. So just to create the space, so we shift from we keep the heart there, but we shift down into our being, which I tend to associate with the hara, the center, the tantien. Those are all terms that mean the center of our being, which is kind of a little bit below our belly button. And when we shift into that space, we all become like a unique facet of one gem. And that's a metaphor for the fact that when we move into a siddha space, we're going to attract a higher form of intelligence that is equal to all of our consciousnesses as one consciousness. So that's the experiment we do when we move into the siddha space. So what I do right now is I just literally become every single one of you. It becomes me, and I become all of you. And the same with all of you to everybody else. So that's the headspace we get into. That's the intent. We're lining up that kind of an intent. So that right now, because we've already shared the shadow space, so there's nothing to be embarrassed about. And we've already shared the gift space, so we know we're all friends. So now we're going to share the siddha space, and we're going to open up our, basically, you could call it our angelic intelligence, because that's what the siddha space is. It's how we tune into our angelic consciousness. And I mean it in a way that has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity or any of those Western religious traditions. I wasn't raised religious. I discovered it on my own years later through Gurdjieff. He was a Russian mystic, an enlightened being who was Russian, who was probably about the baddest ass enlightened being there ever was, who would make people do things like work intensely for like a whole day without taking a break. He was that kind of a guy who cared that much about people to break their patterns mercilessly. And that's where I learned about angels from. So to me, a guy like that who can ground himself that strongly in the world and have that depth of compassion, I felt like now that's the guy that could probably talk about angels. So when I say angelic intelligence, I'm talking about the fact that we all are guardian angels. We're all guardians of our own being, of our own self, from our light. From our highest intelligence, we are all our own guardian angels. So whenever we get to that point where it says, listen to your own inner voice, when you get to that place where you've studied enough on the path, where your teacher kicked you out and said, you're on your own now, you don't need my voice anymore, find your own inner voice, that's the voice we're talking about. We're talking about the guardian angel. And that's literally what to me, the task of every human being, if they could rise to that occasion, is for your guardian angel to come to earth. And that's what this siddha space is about, to ask our guardian angel to come to earth and join us here, because guardian angels don't know anything about separation. I mean, if I'm in the space with all of you, then I get to feel the best of all of you. And I also will hold the space for the deepest suffering in all of you, because we all have it. And we're all in that same space. So it's about taking away all the boundaries, all the barriers, everything, and literally rushing right through the cellular structure and the energetic structure and the luminous light structure of every single one of us in this space right now. Just like whoosh, like Star Trek when it goes into light speed, but right through each one of us with our consciousness. So there's no more any secrets. I mean, we are all in this space, and it's freedom. In this freedom, we can share like this, and we can speak like this, and we can actually start to touch that exquisiteness, the exquisiteness of what it is to be able to reflect upon the finest, ecstatically laced, but freedom immersed experience that we can be in. And it kind of takes both the shadow and the gift and it kind of blends them and transcends them, but through several different blendings, I guess you could say. So, and I'm speaking to each one of your light bodies right now, because it's not a way of speaking that you would normally speak with another person, because I'm actually making technical descriptions of moves that you can do with your awareness as it deepens to actually create specific effects to raise the frequency of your consciousness. And there's all kinds of ways you can do it. Once you get there, there's just so many ways you can do it, because we're made in such a way that we're multidimensionally flexible in terms of consciousness. So even the way you put words together in the siddha space is weird. Who would say multidimensionally flexible? I mean, really. But I mean, we are. And that makes sense for all of us right now, based in this discourse. So when we get into a siddha space, even though we're speaking and sharing and moving, there's a palpable silence and stillness, and a kind of unwavering witnessing appreciation, and there's a deep ground of kind of like holding the space as with all the compassion of the whole world. We're holding the whole world in our compassion right now also. So that's also there at the base of what is our guardian angelic intelligence. So that is kind of what I mean by open-eyed conversational meditation. It's literally invoking a meditative, almost samadhi-like, and samadhi means an enlightened space where you use different meditative frequencies to tune in a unique, tableau of consciousness that we are all creating right now, like on a stage, on a set. But it's like a stage made of light and consciousness and intention and stillness and silence, even though there's words. So that's my contribution. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. And anybody who enters this space and feels like sharing, don't worry, you'll do it the right way. And most people, when they first do this, will stumble into it and say, I don't know if I'm doing this right or anything. So just to kind of, because this is what, the 19th one of these, plus however many more I've experienced in my life, when you step into this space, it's okay whatever you do. Because you're in it, if you're tuned in right now, you're in a siddha space. So whatever comes out is gonna bring out a different, unique reflection through that facet of the diamond that's you in this multidimensional consciousness shared experience that we're all a part of right now.
Yeah, can't top that.
What I was going to say, though, one thing you can also do, that the way I started to learn how to express myself in siddha spaces, because what was going on with my consciousness, it took me a lot of years to even be able to speak like this and put it together in a way that makes sense. But what you can do is describe what you're experiencing also in a siddha space. You can just describe, maybe your head just blew up as big as the universe, and then they're spiraling, light forms and dolphins, swimming at your feet. I don't know. I'm just making up silly things, but I mean, and that's not how I would experience it. But I'm just saying, you could even just describe, and you'll find that as you start to describe it, it'll take you in, and it will take you deeper because it's the siddha space. So that's one way to start to find your voice in a siddha space, because it's not so much about expressing your unique style of wisdom in a siddha space, which I'm doing right now, which takes a tremendous amount of practice. But you can just simply describe what you're experiencing in the space, instead of try to elaborate on, ramifications of that or whatever, or try to express it in a way so people can get tuned into the space. Because I use the siddha space to bring everybody into the siddha space. But what I'm saying is, maybe you could just describe what it's like being in a siddha space. What is it for you? What are you experiencing? And that's not, don't be limited by that. If you want to talk about your shadow from the siddha space, it's also kind of fun to look back at shadow and go, oh my God, how I act in a shadow space when I am this kind of a being who can tune people into, a collective guardian angel space in the, then to be somebody who acts mediocre. I mean, that just seems like, to me, that's like a little bug that I'm gonna, well, I won't flick bugs anymore. I used to do it as a kid, but I'm a vegan and I'm also an activist, so I wouldn't flick a bug. I almost said that. I caught myself though. So, but anyway, so see, that's what can happen. You can play with even the shadows from the siddha space. Phew, that was close. Thank God I'm in a siddha space. It's probably the only time I could catch myself before I go there.
Well, I'll describe what I'm experiencing and what I have experienced in siddha spaces in the past, which is this feeling of, like you're saying, how we all become part of this bigger consciousness, that's comprised of all of our consciousnesses. It's almost like my hand becoming aware that it's connected to my foot or something, and then just having like a little awakening in my own body where, yeah, and then there's almost like an awkwardness now that I've noticed it, and so I'm just like quiet, waiting to see what's going to come out of it, and if it's going to come out of me or if it's going to come out of somebody else. And I'm like a little excited, and I don't know what to expect. And I guess that's what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, that was a really good description of Citispace. Thank you.
For me, it's a very physical thing. Like whenever I meditate and focus on my crown chakra, it feels like the same thing. My back just naturally arches, my chest lifts, and it just feels very up. Everything is just up, and I can feel all my muscles tense up just because there's so much to process. It's so much, and it's just so overwhelming, but at the same time it's so wonderful. Like my eyes just bulge out of my head even though they're closed, and it's just like it's just a lot. Like all your fingers are webbed, and it's big.
Boy, you're so lucky. I wish when I was 15, I was introduced to Citispace and I was asked to describe it, boy. And first, after being tuned into it, I would be like, whoa, maybe I can continue living on this extremely fucked up planet and have a reason for it because there's Citispace. Anyway, that's just what it brought up in me.
For me, it feels like a receiving of the gift that you created, that you cultivated for yourself in the gift phase. Just as reception of, like when you're sharing a gift with others, you're sharing a gift with yourself. So it's just like the receiving of that.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. That's really cool. That's something I'm gonna have to contemplate later. So thank you. That was a gift.
To me, the Citispace is just somewhere that I want to be 100% of the time. I want to be able to sit in the space and just exist. And I know that's possible. I know we can. And I've felt connected with animals in a spiritual kind of sense for quite a long time. And at the moment, I'm really, really feeling this embodiment of like animal energies. I'm really lucky I'm able to go to the lake that's close by. And it's just the most incredible place. It's so spiritually charged. There's a path. Well, I'm not sure if it's the exact same path, but down the side of the lake is where apparently the Aboriginal peoples, the traditional peoples of Australia used to, that's one of their songlines, where they used to walk. And so it's really beautifully charged. It's just the most amazing place. And I like going down there every day at the moment and just being in that space of embodying like the cat energy or the spider energy, whoever kind of comes to me on that day. And to me, that's the Citispace where I'm just able to be myself as an animal and to really be able to just connect with nature and kind of look at the this incredible world that we're part of, and to be in my animal element, the animalistic kind of aspect of who we are as humans as well. It's really nice to be able to sit in that. And to me, that's like, it's just heaven. It's just heaven, being able to be in my heart and be myself and be that universal experience of itself through whatever kind of being kind of comes through on that day. It's super exciting. And it's funny, looking back over the last few weeks as well, I can see where my cognitive mind has come into play so much, and it's like, I don't know how to, I have this frustration, I don't know how to express these feelings or these sensations or this experience of like universal consciousness of pure love, like just in this place at the moment. It's just so high vibe and amazing, and I want to be able to express that to people. My mind is like, I don't know how to do that, I don't know how to do that. Just wait, trust divine timing, and it'll come. It's fine. Chill out. It's okay. So it's that's, I guess, part of my shadow, part of the ego kind of coming in and taking control again and being like, you're not good enough, or you don't know how to do this. Well, it doesn't matter. Maybe I don't right now, but I will. And these meetings and being able to be in this sort of space with all of you is really beautiful, in terms of being able to process and express in those ways. And it's a level of like, I was in a meeting the other day talking about how we should be able to express our spirituality and not have this fear of judgment of spirituality. And I guess that's probably something that a lot of you have experienced, and maybe not, but I'm just finding it interesting that that's something that's more sort of a part of people's consciousness now. I think it's like it's okay to be spiritual. We're all spiritual beings, so be able to express that is a deep beauty in it, I think.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lucy. Somehow I zapped out. My computer just zapped out for a moment for most of that, but I could hear you in the distance on my wife's computer. But beautiful. Thank you. I'll be back on my computer again in a moment. I'm on my phone now. So I just for a moment, I want to just bring up the word exquisite again. Just how everybody just hold that a frequency of exquisiteness too in the space. So
I'm in the background laughing my ass off because I'm thinking, now everyone knows you're on Windows and not Apple.
Oh, cool.
You had to be there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was a silly joke, just remember the beginning topic, everybody feeling kind of like, can't be themselves, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, right. Good subtle one there. All right. Who else would like to jump in with their Siddhic exquisiteness?
I definitely would. And
Cool.
I have a target. And the young girl on the screen, Adriana, I was her nanny from 9 months old till about 3 something. So I changed her diapers, fed her, burped her, bathed her, we went shopping, we did all kinds of things. Anyways, watched Disney movies. So to see her sitting here right now, that's my siddha. Because I'm an energy worker and I work, well, I don't like titles, but anyways, went and delved into Reiki, hook, line, and sinker. Really appreciated the old philosophy about the whole thing, energy. And I did pass it on to her mother, sitting behind her there, Adriana's mother. I gave her the whole Reiki transmission. And yeah, so no surprise you're sitting here right now, connecting again with me and Derby. So I had to acknowledge that. I think it's incredible. It's like years and years later, you're a whole new person from when I knew you. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. It's really cool to meet you again.
Thank you, Amira. That means a lot.
For me too.
Ditto. And we know what that means right now.
So I just want to say that I'm not sure if everybody's done a sitta yet. And that's, and whenever you feel like doing it. I just, at this point, always at a certain point in the sitta space, I just open the space. So there's kind of like, it's totally open now, but the intent is to keep the frequency at guardian angel consciousness, super consciousness actually is what guardian angel is about, super consciousness, to keep it at that frequency. Sometimes what I like to do, because we've kind of done the three treasure, it's called the three treasures the way I do it, the dropping the stone, opening the vision, and then help from above so we can voyage in the super consciousness. But what I like, a lot of times I like to step into what I call sacred geometry, a sacred geometry space. And I'm just going to throw this out because we're all in kind of a really heightened state of awareness right now, is that because we're 8 people, we could each choose a different facet of a certain configuration that works with the 8. And that's like the trigrams. Funny enough, the trigrams that make up the gene keys and human design and what I do with the life codes. So there's the earth code, the mountain code, the water code, the wind code, the thunder code, the fire code, the lake code, and the heaven code. So there's 8 of us, and each one of us, we could tune into anyone. In fact, anybody at this point, if they want, this is another way you can play with the sittas to start to get used to them, because to just go freeform it can be a bit challenging. So along with describing your space, you can also, if you have any kind of like a deep connection, like earth is about receptivity, okay? Mountain is about stillness, which means, just so you know what stillness is, it's when a puddle clears and it's still, you can see your reflection in it. So you can see clarity. So it's not just stillness, it's also clarity, and it's other things, and it's seeing solutions. That's what the mountain is. Water is overcoming obstacles. Wind is flexible obedience, which is action that's in harmony with the times. Not in a mediocre way though, but in a way where you are who you are, and you give something to the times rather than just allow the times to drag you along and you just be a little vampire. And then thunder is word and deed and accord, congruence, you say what you do. Fire is inner and outer awareness. Lake is joy and following the Tao, which is great nature. And heaven is the creative. So if any of those things I just described would be a theme for you that you could jump into, and you kind of have to be it. What I mean by jump into it, it's like if I want to be the creative right now, well, I'm creating this meeting. So it's easy for me to do a sitta on creativity because it's my creativity that's creating a space where everybody else's creativity can function in the space, and we can all share our creativity and create a space that's absolutely unique, and out of which we all get something, out of which we all take something away from it, because in creating there's always an overflow and an abundance, a superabundance of giving. That's what creativity is. It's more than enough. You have too much, so you have to share it. You have to give it out. You have to overflow it. And because we're all kind of like in one unified space right now, overflowing, it's really having an effect on our everywhere, wherever we are right now in the world, there's an overflow from each one of us, like we're a little creative explosion happening. around in our neighborhood. Even if the people around us don't know it, they're getting the benefit of that. So I always, whenever I introduce something, I always, if I'm going to say and invite people into doing it, I'll always do it first. So that's an example of how you could illuminate by commenting on what's occurring. And the funny thing about AcidoSpace is as you comment on what's occurring, you're actually doing it. You're actually creating that phenomena happen. Because before I mentioned the fact that we're little explosions that are affecting our whole neighborhood in a positive way, I guess we didn't have that possibility. So I created that possibility and we all jumped into it. So there, that's an example of creatives. The creative. So if anybody, has a, an affinity with earth or water or fire or even heaven, which is the creative, or wind or thunder or mountain or lake, any of those, that's what makes up our genetics. They're all built up out of those basic elements. You take 2 of those and put them on top of each other, and that's a hexagram. We have 64 of those. That's what makes up who we are, genetically speaking. But that's just the last stack from our light, our highest, even beyond our light body, our universe body, whatever you want to call it, what we're tuning into now, which is our guardian angel, which is, we're a microcosm. So we're a small universe, but we're a universe. So it includes a light body, but that's kind of in the middle, the light body. That's why when we go into our heart, we get in touch with our light body and it transforms our shadow. But if we stack it all the way down, then we have genetics. Then what we're talking about are these hexagrams. But these hexagrams can go all the way up to the universe too. They function on all levels, not just genetically, materially, physically. They also function in terms of total space, total being. So, and you could use it anywhere you want in there. So that's just kind of an invitation. If you, that's kind of like another thing you can do with it, along with describing what your experience is in AcidoSpace. And I just dare you, try it. You won't get it wrong, believe me. Because I'll find something in there about the way you did it that's perfect. I guarantee it. I've never not been able to do that. So I got your back if you jump into AcidoSpace right now and try something like that.
I'm doing it. And I'm going to require Dharmendra, Adriana, and Danya to assist me in this energy flow, because we have known each other for many, many, many years. And I'm going to bring this to a place, and I'd like to ask that the rest of you lovelies would assist us in giving energy right now, because we have just undergone, the 4 of us, a horrific we watched somebody we love so much lose the love of her life by this horrible virus. We have been, we did a lovely drive-by memorial service. Those are my babies in the back, tending to the neighborhood. Anyway, we, did a drive-by service. We've all been engaged in the passing of my daughter's beloved. Anyway, it's really weird because I deal every day, and well, I have been for like years because I'm an activist, but anyway, even more so with what's going on, and how oblivious humanity is walking the streets. They just don't care. I actually had to, I've confronted a few people saying, you're not wearing a mask out. Why not? And the number one stupid response is, well, if it's my time to go, and then I look at them and I'm like, but what about everybody else around you that you infect? Especially with your weird ass, attitude, but whatever, with this virus, and they're like, well, it ain't real. I'm just like, what? And I'm like, I have proof. It's real. So this thing hit me and the other 3 people very close to home, right? Right, guys? We got it head on. We lost somebody head on. And, that was early on in our state. He was the one in the first 32 to pass. My point being is, we all know this is a wake-up call, and to say the least. I mean, that's such a, cliche, a wake-up call. We got to get it now or never. I mean, in Mother Earth, we can't hurt her. She'll just kick our asses off it and say, yeah, I'm going to go on and do my own thing. Start something else. Yeah, Brittany, she gets that. Yeah, right? Can't hurt her, no way. But she's gonna shake us and wake us. This is now or never. I do so much activism. I'm so much connected with people like Dr. Silas Rao, right? And his work in the white paper and all that. And, Vegan World 2026, and it's like we're heading into, look at what's happening in America. Oh God, I'm taking this to a bad place. I'm sorry. I don't mean to take this over. I'm sorry, Darby, if I'm doing that.
You can't do anything wrong in a city space. We're all holding a space for you right now. It's
Okay.
it's just a very interesting macro dimensional chamber you're creating.
I just
But
want to be respectful, but yeah, I just don't want to go on
we're
a
holding.
tangent.
No, we're holding it. It's just it doesn't matter. You can't do anything wrong in this space. And by the way, one of the keys to enter a city space is also to go through death space.
Right. Yes, I know
Another
that.
way to do that.
But this is your thing and not mine, so I don't want to take it over because I could.
It's everybody's things. That's the point I keep trying to make is we're all Buddhas here. We're all Zorba the Buddhas here. That's why I'm doing all this. The point is that it's not about one Buddha guy standing back going, okay, you guys just sit and listen, and maybe in 20 years you'll get it. I'll just keep talking, and most of the time you're just going to get bored and fall asleep. That's not what I want to do. I want to see people do what we're doing here, where I say, okay, we're all going to go into Buddhist space, because that's another name for what we're doing when we're going into Guardian Angel or Siddha space too, by the way, is we're going into our Buddha space, Christ space, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Whatever your background, it doesn't really matter. We're going into that. We're going in, tapping into it on purpose. And the strength of our intent is what holds it there. I just know how to get there, but I need all this. It takes all this energy to hold it there. It's almost impossible to do it alone. To do something like this where there's enough energy to also lift us all at the same time. It's not just. Go ahead.
You know what I love about Evan? Hold on. Because there is such a feminine presence tonight, which is so needed, right? And Evan, I said, hold on, because you have a great feminine side. And I've known that about you since I first met you. I mean, seriously. And we've talked on the phone, you've revealed yourself. So I know, not saying he's gay, people, don't worry. I'm not saying nothing like that. Even if he was, who cares? I'm just saying he's so connected with the feminine energy, and which is so cool and so needed right now, because we've got to tip the scale in that favor. We really do. So, and there's you young women, Stephanie, Brittany, Lucy, and Lucy I've heard so many times. You guys are all just so lovely, lovely, lovely ladies. I mean, you really, really are. You guys all have this etiquette in a good way. And I do mean etiquette in the way that just self-awareness, how you present yourself and how you want to, you know, assertiveness. I mean, you guys rock it. I am so proud of you young girls. Really, I mean that. Anyways, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm never sorry, but you know.
Amira, we've reached the 2-hour point. So what I'm going to do is, what I always do now is invite somebody to do a closing statement. And then we're going to stop recording, and anybody who wants to keep hanging, if we want to keep relating for a while, that's fine. But it won't be recorded because we've come to the 2-hour point, and we've done a good rip on the sitta. I'd like to invite Stephanie if she doesn't mind, because everybody else, and Brittany, you're brand new. I won't put you under that pressure. If you come again, though, you'll get a turn, because everybody else makes a final statement, a sort of synthesis, and kind of lifts the space, and it'll be a subtle way for you to also have to get into your sitta there, Stephanie, because you haven't done that. But I invite you to make a closing statement just based on your experience tonight, and, you know, make a nice message out of it all for humanity and all that stuff, if you know what I mean. That's what I mean by a closing statement. And then I'm going to stop recording, and then we can keep relating if we want. But I'm going to stop now, and it's your space, Stephanie, to close us out tonight as far as the recording goes.
I'll try. I think for me, to describe how I'm feeling is it's like a submission to the good, the bad, and different, and being above that and a witness of that, as well as kind of coming from the ground upwards. So it's like I know it, I feel it, I'm aware of it, and now I see it, and there's no feeling or need to do anything else but to just be the fly in the wall and witness. So yeah, that would be how I would describe that.